Okay, on this video I'm going to talk about Horizon Zero Dawn. Can you use black frame insertion? Is HDR10 good? How about HLG? So here's the problem. This game doesn't care about Windows. If you have 800 nits on Windows or the default 1500, it doesn't care about the brightness slider on Windows or anything like that. So, and then on the game, you don't have proper sliders. So basically, it's a mess. So I spent over a week trying to get the HDR10 right on this game. And I was able to fix it using Reshade. But if you have a console, that's not going to do anything for you. So on the consoles, as far as I know, the game doesn't support system level calibration either. So what can you do? HLG tone mapping off. And actually, if I was going to play this game with HDR, which I will, I cannot use black frame insertion, and I'm gonna show you that on part 2. This is the only game where tone mapping on with HLG is not working perfect for every single area. For the most part, it's perfect. At night, on the first video I made about black frame insertion and this tone mapping on with HLG, I showed this game, and at night it's perfect. During the night, on all these areas, it's absolutely perfect. And I was saying on that video, man, I'm so excited, this is perfect. Black frame insertion at night, it looks fantastic. But during the day, in some areas, it's looking overexposed. Like that dynamic tone mapping with HLG is not working. It's not working right. And I'm gonna show you that on part 2 of this video. So if I was gonna use HDR on this game, and if I was going to recommend you an HDR setting on this game, HLG tone mapping off. It looks fantastic, and you do not have to mess around with any settings. It just set and forget. It looks perfect. So I spent over a week working on the HDR10 on this game, and I was able to kind of fixing the HDR10. And the only solution was using Reshade on the PC. It's a post-processing injector. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to share settings for Reshade. So I'm gonna be able to give you 2 options at least. If you still want to use the HDR10 from the game, I'm gonna give you some recommendation on Reshade, something that you can try if you still want to go with the HDR10 from the game. So what's the problem with the HDR10 on this game? So basically you don't have proper sliders. So you have this brightness slider, which you can max out, and it's not affecting so it's not washing out the colors. So I max out this just to get more brightness because it's too dim basically. And then on the HDR settings, the default is this white point in 300. That's too dim again. And the HDR brightness, you cannot touch this. This is like the black level. If you raise this number from 50, it's going to wash out the colors completely. So the only way I was able to get this HDR10 working was with dynamic tone mapping, which is never gonna be accurate or the best option, never, because it's dynamic. Okay, so basically it's all the time, it's constantly changing the shadow detail, so it's always most likely is going to give you over brighten shadow details, and the highlights are going to dim a little bit. I was measuring like 650 nits, something like that. So it's never ideal, but it was the only way I was able to get this HDR10 working. So I couldn't get it working without Reshade, because with the white point on 300 it was too dim during the night. Even with dynamic tone mapping, it was too dim. And then if I raise that paper white, which is supposed to be, paper white is supposed to be like the standard brightness, like the SDR brightness, like the overall brightness of the image. So it should actually be 200, not 300. So I think that's what it is. So basically, even on 300, it was too dim. So if I raise that to 800, then the highlights are blowing out. So I look at the moon, and I cannot see the details on the moon. So with Reshade, I was able to fix that. And you see I have one click here that changed everything. So if I click this, it's too much because I have that on 800. So basically I look at the moon, the clouds, everything looks blowing out. But then I click on my fix and everything looks acceptable. Okay, acceptable. Not better than HLG tone map enough. But let me share with you what I did with this Reshade. So Reshade has a lot of options. Like, it's overwhelming. Oh, so overwhelming. But I was playing around especially with this tone map option and with the lift gamma gain option. Okay, and on Red Dead Redemption 2 I was able to fix the HDR10 and the colors being washed out using these two options. So I might share that on a different video. So for this one, basically we have tone map. We have the option to change the gamma. We have the option to change the exposure, which basically the exposure is, if I change the exposure on this video, if I lower the exposure, you can maybe see the highlights better, but then everything is going to crush. The shadow detail is going to be crushed. And if I increase the exposure, everything looks overly bright, okay, and blowing out. So that's what exposure does. So I lower the exposure a little bit, minus 200 on this with these settings. And then the gamma, if you increase the gamma, that lowers the overall brightness and gives you a little bit more depth on the image. And then we also have an option here that is called defog color. That's very interesting because I am able to select, for example, red only, and so I can reduce that red push when I'm using HLG. And HLG does push the red a little bit. So what I'm trying to do is to get rid of that red push, keeping the saturation on 55 so I can get a better result. But I'm still working on it. So I'm going to be working a lot now with this Reshade. And you let me know, because this takes a lot of work. A lot of work. But one thing I can do is, after I want to get a general settings that works for everything. So you don't have to, every single game rely on me. So I can give you, and I'll give it to you for free. That takes a lot of work, but I will do it. I will give it to you for free. So I'll give you my presets, and I can upload my presets. So you just download that, you get Reshade working, and you just turn on the game, and it's gonna work. It's gonna be perfect. So I'm still working on that. So I can give you a second option, not only HLG tone mapping off. HLG tone mapping off is gonna work very good, very, very good on every single game. But tweaking that with Reshade might give you a second option to use HDR10. So this is looking good now. So let me show you the settings with HDR10, and I'm gonna tell you also the Reshade settings. So far I still have to work on this. So brightness 100%, HDR settings 50, 800, and then for the Reshade settings, tone map on, I have gamma 1.2, exposure minus 0.2, and that's it. That's basically it for HDR10. So this looks good on every single area. During the night I can see the moon, it is impressive. The mid-tones, they look bright enough, so you can see, so the visibility is perfect basically. And when we go to the daytime, let's take a look at the daytime, it still looks good. So this is not better than HLG tone mapping off, in my opinion. It is not better. But if you think that HDR10 has more information or something, you want to look at the highlights and think that it has more information, and it might have, I don't know. I don't see it, to be honest. I don't see HDR10. I am yet to see a single game where I get granularity and details that are not visible on SDR, with HLG. I'm yet to see that, but I might be wrong. Let me lower the exposure here so you can appreciate better this. So this is looking a little bit better. I have to still work on it, but I cannot recommend it, to be honest. I cannot recommend this over HLG tone mapping off. It doesn't look better. It doesn't look better. The depth of the image is not better. The highlights are not more impressive or brighter. It's still clipping the highlights. And yeah, it's not perfect. But this is the closest. This is the best result I can get, basically. Let me increase the exposure again. So yeah, to conclude, to give you my conclusions, basically. What I recommend in this game, on PC, on my PC, on my TV. I don't know how it's working for you. If it works fantastic for you in HDR, by all means, just use that way. But my recommendation here is HLG tone mapping off, color gamut native, saturation 5150. No Motion Pro. Motion Pro, I have part 2 of this video. This is the only game where I cannot use Motion Pro because tone mapping on with HLG is not working right. So I have to go with HDR without Motion Pro, and the best option is HLG tone mapping off. So the problem with HDR10, again, is affecting. So without Reshade, this is a mess. Let me lower the exposure. Without Reshade, this is a mess. So this is with Reshade. Without Reshade is overly bright. This is a complete mess. If I change it to the default values, it's too dark. So 350, it's too dark. It's too dark, and it's still blowing the highlight details, and it's too dark. At night you cannot see anything. HGIG is even more dark, so you don't have proper sliders. It's not working right. So I understand why some people might think, oh, HDR is a scam, and and you're better off using SDR, because if it was me, I would really struggle trying to get HDR working, and if I didn't have Reshade to fix it, I might just use SDR. But luckily, we discovered this HLG trick, and it's working amazing on this game. Absolutely amazing. So yeah, that's my conclusions. First game I've ever seen where Motion Pro is not possible because that dynamic tone mapping on with HLG is not working right. I'm gonna show you that on part 2. Very difficult to record and to show that, so rely on my description, because that black frame insertion with the black bar and the dark room and the resolution of the video is a mess. It's a mess, and I would get better gear once the times the time goes on. I will get better gear and try to record this better for you. But still, my description is going to be 80%, because I don't have a way to show you exactly what I see in front of me. So what I'm telling you, try it for yourself. Try it. And let me know. Let me know how it works. So yeah, that's all I have to say. And if you want to take a look at black frame insertion, watch that part 2. And basically the summary is we cannot use black frame insertion here because on SDR, even if we max out all the brightness, contrast, peak brightness high, it's not bright enough. And if we use tone mapping on, it's not looking right. It's looking clipping. The colors are clipping and it's looking blown out in this area. During the night it's perfect. So what I said at the end of that video was basically, well, we can use it by setting up Reshade, and then during the day just click on our fix. So during the night it looks perfect, then when the day comes, if we see something wrong, we just click on our Reshade fix and we're done. That's not ideal, of course. So yeah, I would rather use no black from insertion and get the best image quality.